What's up, everybody? This is the Booch, and welcome to episode 11 of the Boochcast reviews, Darkside of the 90s. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I am joined by the one and only, the Broke Souls Ginger, Mr. Zack Scott.
What's up, dudes? Yes, it's me, the Broke Souls Ginger, Zack Scott. Genuinely speaking, I'm not that broke yet. Here I am, standing in my corn t-shirt, my bright red sweatpants.
Yes, and you'll notice something different, ladies and gentlemen, from the last 2 weeks. The diva's finally back in the studio. I'm sorry, dude, look, I understand certain situations where I gotta use Zoom. Like, for example, Gator lives in Virginia. When Gator's in Virginia, I use Zoom. I don't like recording on Zoom in general. Editing last week's show and the week before that was a pain in my ass that I never want to go through again. But I know I have to eventually with Gator, but with Zach, who only lives like 20 minutes away, it's easier just to fucking do it here. And I know you're trying to be helpful. I get it in your mind. Oh, if he doesn't do all this driving to be helpful. Really, at the end of the day, it's basically a dick in both our asses to have to record on Zoom. No offense if you're into that kind of stuff, but we're not. So it's not comfortable. But anyway, you all know there's another difference. I got to address this because if I don't, you're not going to listen to a word we say for the next however long this video lasts. And you're noticing, Booch, your glasses are different. Yes, I got new glasses. Let me take a second here.
They look like mine.
Yeah, they're different right here, and there's a reason that I have new glasses, and that is because a few days ago, or I should say a few days ago at the time that we're recording this, the old one's broke. Right here. I'll get another close-up for you guys. As you can see, right here. Yeah, they broke. I was sitting here at the computer. I was editing a podcast. Next thing you know, I go to do my normal thing, clean the lens because they were a little dirty. Give them a quick little wipe. And because the middle part here is so weak, but from over the years, these glasses are very, very old, they snapped. So I had to drive to the Walmart because I had nobody to take me because he ain't got no car and he was at work. But all my other friends that had cars and I could have bum a ride off of were at work. Everybody was at work. So I had to drive myself. I took some Scotch tape, taped the middles, yes, like the nerds in the 90s, ironically, and drove my ass to there. Of course, the tape didn't work, so eventually I had to say fuck it and drive to the Walmart without my glasses. It's the only time in my life I ever drove without my glasses, and ladies and gentlemen, it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my fucking life. Like, let me just say this. I could see the road, but if there was an animal or a pedestrian coming across the street, they weren't making it to the other side. That's all I'm going to say. It was now, luckily, nobody was hurt. No animals were harmed during the driving to Walmart. No humans were harmed either. And I get to the Walmart. I spend forever finding glasses. I had to not only find glasses, but I had to find cheap glasses because Bucci is also a little on the broke side for reasons I won't get into right now. But I was able to find these. They were about $28. Bought them, got them home, and been wearing them ever since. And they're actually, surprisingly, they're a lot nicer, I think. Although it was weird because for a period of time, I felt like I was wearing old lady glasses and I got really insecure. Until Zach told me they were like his. Maybe even more insecure. But anyway, I'm joking.
You look like mine.
I'm kidding. But, I'm getting used to them. I like them. They're a lot sturdier. They're a lot stronger. And at this point, I wasn't looking for cool frames. I was just looking to what was affordable. I saw some cool frames, and the lady was trying to show me, because apparently, when you shop for glasses, I know I'm going on a bit of a rant here, when you shop for glasses, you can't just pick out frames. They have to be frames that accommodate your exact lenses. And one of the main ones they found that were cool was $143. And I asked the lady politely, there's no fucking way I'm paying $143. And she knew that. So she found me the cheapest ones that were $28, and I bought them, wore them out of the store, and they've been great ever since. But enough about that. Y'all ain't here to talk about my problems. I just don't know when the next variety show is going to be, and I had to address this. So, we're not here to talk about my life. We're here to talk about someone else's life. this week. We got a good one. We're talking about one of the greatest talk show hosts in history, a great actor, very talented comedian, the one and only Arsenio Hall. That's right. Arsenio Hall and his very popular, controversial talk show. We're going to get into that, ladies and gentlemen, because early in the decade, the Arsenio Hall show tops the ratings for late night TV, offering American audiences a fresh new take on a stale old concept. Arsenio rewrites the rules of late night television by hosting a show that speaks directly to a younger, more diverse audience. And again, that is the key to success for a lot of people in the 90s. A lot of these things that became successful in the 90s was because they catered to the younger audience that didn't have any TV that was targeting them. It goes back to the TV for teens. That's how Fox became successful. They went after the younger generation. Mm-hmm. It's why other things we're going to be talking about later, they went for the younger generation. When you hit a target audience that feels neglected or left out, you're able to somehow make money. Yep. And Arsenio did that.
Yes, he did.
Because before Arsenio, Carson and other white comedians dominated late night with a brand of humor that alienates rather than embraces black audiences. Now, to an extent, that is true.
Somewhat.
But I don't, and this is just my theory, I could be 100% wrong, I don't think it intentionally meant to alienate black audiences. Because here's one thing you need to know about celebrities, or about rich people in general. Some of them might be racist, but they're capitalists first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Everybody's money is good.
Mm-hmm.
If you got money, you can circumvent a lot of shit. Because people who want to make money will happily take your money regardless of who you are. You know? And there are some people that will bypass that and not take your money, and I call them morons.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every weeknight, almost 10 million Americans are still running to see Johnny's mix of celebrities, political figures, and sports heroes. And for a generation of mostly white musicians and comics, Johnny Carson is their St. Peter, deciding who could pass through his pearly gates into the paradise of Hollywood celebrity. And that is a key element to all of this, was Johnny Carson.
Mm-hmm.
He literally held the keys to the kingdom. And I know this as a comic. There are so many comedians that are famous. Some of you know them today as legends in the game. Johnny Carson was their rite of passage. That's how powerful The Tonight Show was. Johnny Carson was the rite of passage. Guys like Eddie Murphy,
mm-hmm.
Jerry Seinfeld, Roseanne Barr,
yep.
Jeff Dunham, Jeff Foxworthy, Bill Engvall, Rodney Dangerfield, Don Rickles, the ultimate roast master, before Jeff Ross. Like, these are guys who literally got their careers jumped by being on Carson. And there was a way that it happened. You got those 5 minutes on Johnny Carson.
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of your set, one of three things would happen. Number one, you would applaud. Number two, he'd give you, as Rodney used to say, one of these. Like, you did okay, kid. And then the third option, he would wave you over to come sit next to him and talk. What you wanted was the wave. If he waved you over to come sit, congratulations. You are now made it. Because if he's going to sit there and talk to you and banter with you, that means he liked you, and your career was about to skyrocket. You were about to become the next big thing. Now, obviously, there are some comics who made it without the Johnny Carson route back then. But Johnny Carson was like a cheat code.
Yep.
There's the long way to success, and there's the fast track to success. Yes. Carson was the fast track.
Fast track.
You could still make it without Carson, but you had a long, winding road ahead of you. You were gonna have to every day be hustling, hustling, hustling. Every day be hustling.
Rather than the back roads, you want to take the interstate right to the exit where you go. Mm-hmm. So that's what you need. Johnny Carson was always funny too, but I like Arsenio Hall. Like, who the hell is this dude? Like, oh, the dude come to America. Then I started realizing, I remember this dude right here. I remember him. He was pretty funny. Still is to this day.
Yeah. Like, Johnny Carson had a bit one time where he said, for this year for Halloween, a lot of people are going to be going out in scary costumes and trying to frighten people. And this year, I decided to go as the scariest thing on the face of the earth. My ex-wife. But Johnny Carson's iron grip on late night loosens with the arrival of a fourth television network. And again, if you've been following us through the series on the playlist, you know which network that is. Fox. That's right. Again, this is when Fox came in.
Yep.
Now, Fox had The Late Show with Joan Rivers, that was made famous from her appearances on The Tonight Show, and then as Johnny's fill-in host, will now compete directly against her mentor. Feeling betrayed, Johnny never speaks to her again and works to sabotage her show. Basically saying, if you went on her show, you can't come on mine. So, long story short, Johnny Carson was a petty motherfucker.
Yes, he was.
Like, he's one of those people that's like, oh, you don't want to work under me anymore? All right. Well, now I'm going to sabotage you. There's the thing. Some people, not everybody, there are some people who, when you work under them, they expect you to stay under them for the rest of your life. They want to keep you under their thumb and hold you hostage. Because they know if you go somewhere else, you won't want to come back to them. And I'll tell you this, anybody that is considered your mentor that holds you down is not really your mentor.
No, that's called a dick.
Yeah, they're basically trying to make you their slave.
Yep.
Because they know if you go somewhere else and you get treated better, you're not going to go back to that person, because it's not until you leave that person and go somewhere else that you realize how toxic that person is.
Very true.
Now, for all the Booch fans out there that have known me for a long time, I know what some of you are thinking when I say this. And the answer is no. This is not me taking a shot at Larry Wax. I'm taking a shot at somebody else. Those who's in the Boochcast, that person is Voldemort. I'm not... Larry Wax, I was... Some people say, because I was his protege when I was on the Regular Guys show. Larry was my mentor. He is my showbiz mentor. I learned a lot from Larry Wax under his tutelage. He taught me almost everything I know about radio, just about everything I know about comedy, I learned from Larry. I became a better performer working on the Regular Guys. Now, of course, Southside Steve, Eric Von Hessler, Tim Andrews, they also taught me a few things along the way. So I learned something from everybody. But Larry was the main mentor who believed in me, took a chance on me, gave me an opportunity. I took that ball, I ran with it as best I could. And when he got back on the air a few years later, he even brought me back on for that. And allowed me to shine more on that show because I paid my dues the last time. That's why he let me be the wrestling guy on the show, or talk about UFC and boxing. I was the director of combat sports. I covered the combat sports for the show. And then even after that show ended, Larry's always been in my corner. And Larry saw me become successful. He saw me go to Adult Swim and make a name for myself. He saw the documentary where I ate the car. He knows about me working with Buff Bagwell. He knows I've been doing a lot in the wrestling business. And here's the kind of a good man that Larry Wax is. When he sees those things, he doesn't think, oh, my protege is surpassing me, I have to sabotage him. No. He looks at it as, see how good of a fucking teacher I am? That's how Larry goes. Larry sees my success. He brags at people. Hey, can I pick him?
Sure.
See, because Larry looks at that and goes, hey, ladies and gentlemen, Under my tutelage, you can achieve this level of success. That's how he looked at it. He goes, see, people under my tutelage end up on Adult Swim. They end up on Fight TV. They end up on Amazon Prime. They end up on HBO Max and DC Universe. You can get to that level by working with him. And that's how Carson should have viewed this. Mm-hmm. All right, fine, so you're competing against each other a little bit. I believe if Johnny Carson, if you're as good as you say you are, you're not going to care what Joan Rivers does. Let her have her show. If she's successful, look at it like this. Joan beat you in the ratings. Yeah. Who do you think taught her? You know, I'm still the king of late night. She wants to be the queen, that's up to her. That's how I would look at it. Don't see it as somebody betraying you. See it as somebody who is taking what they learned, making themselves a star, and give yourself the credit for saying, I made Joan Rivers. Without me, she's nothing.
I don't know about that. I think Joan Rivers would do just fine without Joan.
Yes, but you get my point.
Yeah, I get your point.
I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying that's how, if I was Johnny Carson, that's how I would look at it. Obviously, Joan Rivers didn't need Johnny Carson as far as being a stand-up. No. Joan Rivers was successful on her own, and she was a pioneer and was amazing. I'm not taking anything away from Joan Rivers.
Was she that funny in stand-up?
It wasn't really my cup of tea, but she did break down barriers. Okay. She was a pioneer. So, I give her props, or as we say nowadays, her flowers.
Her flowers.
But I personally, I didn't really laugh with Joan Rivers, but I acknowledge that she's one of the greats and a pioneer.
She said like she smoked about a pack of menthols a day.
I think it was more like a minute. Don't start with me, kid. I've had a very long day.
Oh, God, here we
go. Can we talk?
I always find her funny. She was a good interviewer. She was.
Yeah.
She was. I never heard a political rant about her.
I mean, well, that's because she passed away before all the crazy. She passed away before all the crazy really got here.
Yeah, true.
You know, I don't know how crazy she would have got if she was alive today. We'll never know. But here's the problem, though, with what Joan was going through. On a late show, talent is your bread and butter. Most people tune in to see the guests. Without headline talent, the ratings lag. So Fox decides to keep the late show and lose Joan Rivers. So that's why it sabotaged her, because they realized Carson was being petty. So we got to take Joan Rivers out because, and it's not a knock on Joan, it's the fact that everyone's scared to go on her show because they don't want to get blackballed by Carson because Carson's still the man.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's part of the stroke of being the man is you have that kind of power. Some people abuse it. Most of them don't. But Carson really had it out for Joan. He saw this as a massive betrayal. How dare you compete against me after everything I've done for you, in his eyes. They bring in a slew of talent to be guest hosts, including a young comic named Arsenio Hall. And here's the thing. The talent thing is 100% true. There are some people who tune in, like, for example, to Tonight Show or Late Night or whatever, because they like the host. And yeah, the host needs to be great. But there are some people who will tune in just to see the guests that you have. I'll use as an example. Me personally, I am a huge fan, most people know, of Dane Cook. He was my idol. He was the guy that inspired me to pursue comedy. And I was a fan of Dane back when it wasn't popular to be a fan of Dane. Today, Dane Cook gets the respect that he deserves. I was giving him that respect long before that.
I always liked Dane Cook.
I did. Anytime Dane Cook was on a talk show, I watched. If Dane was going to be on Jimmy Kimmel, I'm watching Jimmy Kimmel. If he's on David Letterman, I'm watching David Letterman. If he's on The Tonight Show, I'm watching The Tonight Show. If he was on with Craig Ferguson, I'm watching Craig Ferguson. Like, it didn't matter to me. Whether I liked the host or not, if the guest was on, I watched. And then I would see some, nowadays with YouTube, if I saw with certain people, like, when Jimmy Fallon was hosting, like Alan Rickman was on one time.
Alan Rickman, Professor Snape.
Mm-hmm. And he had a bone to pick with Jimmy Fallon. And basically Jimmy had this game he liked to play with certain celebrities where they would take these balloons filled with helium, inhale them, and talk. Mm-hmm. So And Alan Rickman has both the balloons in his hand. He goes, you know, a while ago you asked if people impersonated me. He's got this look on his face like Jesus. He goes, and then I heard Benedict Cumberbatch and you had what was described as a Rickman-off, where they're both doing their impression of Alan Rickman. He goes, these are the Jimmy Fallon truth-telling machine. Mm-hmm. So, what you had to say about that? He hands in the balloon. He goes, breathe it in. He goes, I'm very sorry you were offended. I'm very, very sorry. And welcome to the show. And then Alan Rickman goes, apology accepted. He goes, and then Jimmy's like, can I ask you a question? He goes, sure. He goes, what was the name of the movie? What the character, the guy he did with the scar and everything? What was that? And he goes, Professor Snape. And Jimmy Fallon's like, no, the name of the kid. And he goes, this is very difficult, but it's Harry Potter. So some funny shit like that. So the guest makes the show sometimes. Because you might not like the host. But if the guest is good, oh, you gonna tune in.
Yes, you are.
So, especially if that person got something to say. Especially if they catch somebody off a controversial moment. Oh my God. Because yeah, you need guests. If you're going to be a talk show host, you need to have guests on your show. And you need to have guests that people are going to want to see or give a damn about. That's why some shows do better than others. Now, like Carson and Letterman, Hall is from the Midwest.
Yes, he is.
Born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1962, he's the son of a preacher. Is drawn to the spotlight from a young age. He started out as Arsenio the Magician when he was 12 years old on a public affairs show called Soul. Arsenio wanted to be a talk show host like Johnny and used to practice in his room.
Mm-hmm. But then there was an audience with special guests and everything else, and dude that had a good imagination.
I've done the same thing.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, like, hey, ladies and gentlemen, I got my special guest on the show. Please welcome Eddie Murphy. You know, something like that. Or,
ladies and gentlemen, please special guest, Leo DiCaprio.
So, Leo, what shitty movie you got coming out this week?
Oh, that's the shitty movie. I made $400 million off that one movie.
Let me guess. Are you?
Yes.
Let me guess. Are you gonna get redemption aboard a cruise ship? Are you gonna? Do you get raped by a lion this time, or?
No, he overdoses off of cocaine.
Well, it wouldn't be a Leo movie if he didn't die.
Uh-huh.
So, and that's not even an insult. That's just the truth. That's not an insult. That is just a fact of life. The only one who could ever beat Johnny was the son of a preacher man. After college, Arsenio moves to L.A., where, like Johnny, he pursues a career in stand-up. He was discovered by Alan Thicke, which...
That was a dad off of Growing Pains, right?
Yes. He also did 3 movies in the late 80s, early 90s that were fucking awesome, called Not Quite Human.
Yeah.
I love those movies, by the way. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he was the dad in there. He was Dr. Carson in that one. And they did a shtick on Thick of the Night. So they had a little like duo show where they were together, and it gets canceled after 1 season. But Arsenio's time as the show's number 2 earns him a chance in the big chair as a temporary fill-in on Fox's late night show. So Alan Thicke was the main star of the show, obviously, and Arsenio came in as his number 2. Now, some people might have a problem with that, but here's the thing people need to remember. I understand that the talk show world was white-dominated for a period of time, but here's the harsh reality. If you want to get in there and change the game, you need a foot in the door.
Yes, you do.
And then once you get the foot in the door, you move up the ladder. You pay your dues, you move up the ladder. We're going to get into that in a moment with somebody else. But once you get up to that level, then you can start to make the changes. Then you can start to elevate. Once you get to a top spot. But unfortunately, you got to play the game.
You got to pay your dues.
And I know that sounds shitty to say, but it's the truth. You pay your dues, you play the corporate game, you do the BS, you get up the ladder. Once you get to the top and you're the man in charge, then you can make the decisions. Then you can make the changes. You can make the changes from the inside instead of having to fight on the outside. Instead of having to protest and demand meetings, You're already in there. You already have everyone's respect. You're now the boss. And when you're the boss, you call the shots.
Oh boy.
I wasn't going to do the whole time. Hey, I'm sorry. It pops out when I say boss. Give me a fucking break. Anyway. They did a test run where he did a 13-week stint as the host to see if he could pull it off. He delivered and brought a certain flavor that changed what late night television looks like. Because again, he was different. That's why people could hear him. He would have conversations that nobody else would have. And it was very informative and interesting. He would talk about drugs. He would talk about sex, race, and other modern topics. Like, he was getting into those things that the other hosts weren't touching, really. Because they wanted to, you know, squeak by. But Fox, again, this is the time when they're innovative and they're trying new shit. And they're still kind of the redheaded stepchild of the network world. Hey, that's not even a shot at you. That's a real fucking phrase.
Well, I know it is.
Okay? That wasn't even a knock at you.
I've been called that, so I was like, I'm not a stepkid, but okay.
Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about that until I looked over at you and saw a look on your face. Then I realized what I just said. I wasn't even trying to make a ginger joke at that moment. I swear to God I wasn't. But I've heard the term redheaded stepchild. Okay, so Johnny Carson and NBC are still preventing A-list talent from appearing on the shows. But Arsenio flips the script by inviting young and up-and-coming talent instead. Yeah. So instead of him going after the big stars, let's find out who's on and popping right now. Who's young and looking for exposure. And let's put them on the show. Also, 25% of the viewers were African-American. And therefore, they have to cater to that. Mm-hmm. You got to bear in mind, okay, because that's the thing you do. You look at your demographic, if you can. 25% of the people watching our show are African American. That means we got to cater 25. Now, that does mean 75% of the other, but you still got to cater that 25% from time to time. Mm-hmm. Why? To keep them watching. So we mix it up. And that's what Arsenio did. He had black people on his show. He had white people on his show. He had Latino people on his show. He had variety. Yeah. Because he also knew, yes, I have a lot of black viewers. They're not my only viewers. And they're not the only viewers. It's like we said before in the hip-hop video, you know, if you want to become a megastar, you don't become a megastar with just black fans only. You got to have fans of all races to make it to the top. So, when Arsenio's temporary hosting deal ends, Fox executives offer him a midnight talk show of his own. But Hall passes. Mm-hmm. And instead, he signs on to play multiple characters in his close friend Eddie Murphy's new movie, Coming to America.
Coming to America, yes. Yes. The most famous scene was in that barbershop talking about the famous boxers that Joe Louis. Oh, you guys forget about Cassius Clay. Yeah, that's true. We forgot about him. I was like, how the fuck you forget about Muhammad Ali?
Hey, if the man wants to be called Muhammad Ali, you should respect his wishes and call the man Muhammad Ali. His mama named him Clay. I'm going to call him Clay. He's like, and they're talking about Joe Louis being the best. What about Rocky Marciano? Oh, great. Every time I talk about Joe Louis, somebody want to come in talking about Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano. Let me tell you something. Rocky Marciano was good, but compared to Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano ain't shit. He beat Joe Louis's ass. That's right, he did whoop Joe Louis' ass. Yes, he did. Joe Louis was 75 years old when they thought. Well, I don't know how old he was, but he got his ass whooped. He's like, Joe Louis was too old, too damn old. In fact, I remember Frank Sinatra came in here one time. Frank Sinatra used to sit in this chair. I cut his hair one time. I said, hey, Frank, you hang out with Joe Louis. Between you and me, how old is Joe Louis? He said, Joe Louis is 137 years old. 137 years old. And you ain't never met no Frank Sinatra. Fuck you, and fuck you. Who's next? What kind of chemicals you put in here? I put no chemicals, only juices and berries. Shit, that ain't nothing but old sperm. Just make it nice and neat.
Make it nice and neat.
He cuts out the ponytail. Mm-hmm. That'll be $8. I love that scene. And Arsenio Hall was the best. Mm-hmm. You know my favorite character that he did?
What?
Was Reverend Brown. Now you go on ahead and tie that knot. I'm gonna pray for you. And then you hold on to God's ever-changing hand, because he helped Joshua fight the battle of Jericho. He helped Johnny get out the lion's den. He helped Gilligan get off the island. Lord, yes.
Okay.
Now bring on Mr. Randy Watson.
Randy Watson.
That boy's good.
That boy's good.
Good and terrible.
Good and terrible.
Yeah, thank you, Reverend Brown.
Reverend Brown.
I believe the children are our future. Thank you. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Central Chocolate. Or you know what? Another good Arsenio Hall scene was Samuel L. Jackson when he robs the McDowells. It's like, who the fuck is this asshole? I warn you, I'll be forced to thrash you. Fuck you! And they kick his ass, and then Arsenio Hall goes, freeze, you diseased rhinoceros pizzle. Like, fuck! Arsenio Hall had great insults in that. You sweat from a baboon's ass. And he's the only one that can say that to the Prince of Zamunda. Because they grew up being best friends.
Like, or that part when he saw the king, he goes, ah! Like Macaulay Culkin in the mirror at Home Alone, he starts screaming like on like a high pitched girl. I was like, oh no, it was James Earl Jones, aka Darth Vader,
aka Mufasa,
aka Mufasa.
Told me my son was here. Where's this place? McDowell's. I think he works there. My son works. And I was sitting there going, I think it's the first time a father ever got mad at the fact that his son has a job. I'm like, fuck. My dad would be like, my son works? Hell yeah.
Here we go.
Now, after Hall's big screen success, Fox approaches him again, this time offering more money and a better time slot. But Arsenio wants even more. Not just a paycheck to host a show, but a piece of the action and a seat at the table. Fox turns him down. It's a decision they will soon regret.
Mm-hmm.
Not like many bad choices Fox has made. I want to sit at the table. I want to be a producer. I want the back end. I want creative control. I want to be able to do my show my way. Mm-hmm. Fox is like, nope. Now, throughout the 80s and 90s, late night TV remained hugely profitable, while also being mostly cut off from the most profound changes happening in American culture. Yeah. They're one of those people that's like, we want to be a place of entertainment and escapism. Which, to an extent, I agree with. But, if you're going to host a talk show, depending on severity of the tragedy, you're going to have to talk about it if it's really major. There's some things where you kind of be like, I'm not going to touch that.
Yeah.
But there are some cases that are so fucking huge and are so life-changing for America that not to talk about it is just plain stupid.
Very true.
Only one spot is showing performances by young, hip talent. Mm-hmm. That is, until Arsenio, who grew up wanting to be Johnny Carson, gets an offer he can't refuse. A chance to host and executive produce his own talk show. Paramount Television also has a plan to grab some late-night cash by getting Arsenio to host a syndicated talk show. Unlike network programs, syndicated shows are sold by individual stations across the country. Paramount even offers Arsenio the same level of creative control that Carson was able to acquire at the end of his career. So they're giving him a Johnny Carson-style deal.
Yes, they are.
And he's like, well, here's what I want. Mm-hmm. I can't turn this down. By the time he retires in 1992, Carson controls every aspect of his program, from who gets hired to his on-screen image. He also controlled who would appear on his show. Mm-hmm. Arsenio Hall wants to have a similar control. But along with creative control, Arsenio will share in the show's profits.
Yes.
Just like Oprah Winfrey does on her show. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, here's my salary, but I also want a share of the back end. And that's a big deal too. A percentage helps. Now you want guaranteed money on top of the percentage. That way if the percentage is low, you still got your guaranteed money. Because if you rely just on profits and sales, you gotta work 10 times as hard and you can get fucked.
True.
Trust me. On January 3rd, 1989, the Arsenio Hall show debuts. From that first show, Arsenio's determined to revitalize late night. He knows the formula works. It just needs a facelift.
Yes, it does.
He went after the children of Johnny's audience because they didn't have a late night show catered to them. And again, to an extent, I see why. Because most kids are in bed by this point.
Yeah.
Or most teenagers are outside. Late night shows are geared towards adults, older adults, because they're the ones late at night sitting in front of their TV. Nowadays, that might be different. But in the 90s, people would actually, go outside. People would, play video games and do other things. There are not a lot of people sitting in front of the TV. Nowadays, everybody's sitting in front of the TV. And I'm not complaining, because if y'all weren't sitting in front of the TV, we'd be talking to nobody right now.
Pretty much.
So, please sit in front of the TV. At least until after this video's done. Unless you're watching on a playlist, in which case, please watch next week's show. Please watch next week's show. But if next week's show ain't out yet, then you can just stop here and then come back next week when we are.
Yeah.
So, watch this and then go somewhere else.
Yes.
Now, it's a crowded battlefield, as the very next week, CBS launches its own bid for those late-night talk show ad dollars, starring the hugely popular host of Wheel of Fortune, Pat Sajak. He had a great show and was a great guy, but it was a pale imitation of Johnny. And that's the problem. When you become a copycat, people prefer the original.
Yes, that's true.
How often do you enjoy a copy of something?
How many times can you recover a song over and over and over and over again? Okay, we heard this version. We heard this version too. Oh no, why don't you make up something on your own? Yeah.
Now, Arsenio, on the other hand, in the process, he also transforms what it sounds like. Musical guests from Kid and Play were on the show. Salt and Pepper were on the show. Tupac, Snoop Dogg, and Bobby Brown. It's my prerogative. Then, of course, they had LL Cool J was on the show. Rock the Bells. Martin Lawrence was on the show. Margaret Cho was another one. Dave Chappelle made a few appearances back in the day. This is a younger Dave Chappelle. When he was still talking about serious issues, but he was a lot more funnier and sarcastic about it. He wasn't as controversial as he is now. Andrew Dice Clay was on that show. And Andrew was funny because he did his bits, he did his poems, but he was clean. And Arsenio brought him on because the other talk shows wouldn't touch him because of how vulgar and racy and controversial he was. And he sat there with Arsenio. Goes, I think I did pretty good tonight. I did a pretty clean set that was funny. He's like, I'm sorry I don't go on stage talking about Wonder Bread. Or, what's the deal with airline food? I don't talk about that shit. I talk about things that guys do. I talk dirty. I pick on people. It's a goof. And then they had Luther Vandross on there. Brooke Shields. Back when she was, smoking hot. Not that she's not hot today, but this is back in her prime. Quincy Jones was on there. Judd Nelson.
Yes.
Judd Nelson, you get to be on the Arsenio Hall show. What can I say? I'm thrilled. You really think I give a shit?
Probably not.
Eat my shorts. Robert Downey Jr., Mecca and the Soul Brothers, Boogie Down Production, Sylvester Stallone.
A young Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
A really, really, really young Sylvester Stallone. Yeah, you sound like, good God. He's young. He's not wearing boxing. Doesn't look like he's playing a mafia boss or getting the shit kicked out of him. Again.
Hey, yo, Arsenio. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm thinking for this next movie, maybe I fight Apollo and, maybe this time we're in space, You come to me on the day of me and my wife's anniversary to ask me if I want to throw hands with you.
Blah, 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 blah. Okay.
And of course, in addition to all that, I know I got a little bit on Stallone rant there. Michael Jackson was on the show.
Or he got the plastic surgery.
Actually, I kind of already did, and I was excited to be on Arsenio's show. And I
don't know him.
I had what?
I don't know him.
What? I'm just doing a voice. Why are you so mad, Zach? Why are you so mad? I'm just trying to have a conversation. Why you got a problem with my hand on your shoulder? You're being ignorant. That's ignorant. You're being ignorant. Why are you doing that? Zach, just focus on the show. What are you doing?
We're gonna get letters.
Why? We're just having a conversation. We're just talking. Why are we?
Where's Gator when I need him?
Well, I have a gator in the backyard, but he's playing with the giraffe right now.
Oh my God.
There's although I have 3 giraffes, although now I have 2. I don't know where he is, but for some reason the gator hasn't eaten in 3 days. I don't know if it's connected. And then of course
to get a phone call.
And then of course
you're gonna get a phone call. You're gonna get a phone call. I had nothing to do with this, man. This is all him.
If you have any complaints, the email is boochcast365@gmail.com. Or you can just comment below and I'll respond to you.
Oh.
And then, of course, Eddie Murphy was on the show.
Yeah.
And Bette Midler.
Bette Midler.
Oh, yes. Now, Arsenio not only reached out to black culture, but also the young culture in general.
Yes.
So, yes, there were a lot of black people listening, but also a lot of younger people. Because remember, like I said before, these artists that were on this show not only were catering to a black audience, but also they had crossed over into mainstream success. So everybody was a fan of these guys and gals. Now, they were younger than what you were getting at Carson with Buddy Hackett, Phyllis Diller, another pioneer in women's comedy. I'd say a little bit bigger than Joan Rivers. Like, it was kind of Phyllis Diller, and then Joan Rivers was like the next big female comic after her. And then there was Engelberg Humperdinck, whoever the fuck that was. Humperdinck. Yes. And I know what you guys are thinking. No, that's not the prince from The Princess Bride.
Humperdinck.
That's not him.
Nope.
Okay. Promise me you would never say that name.
Humperdinck.
I'm not listening.
Humperdinck.
Wait, I'm making better. Humperdinck suffers.
Humperdinck suffers.
Hallowed needle shine. That is a noble cause. Give me 65. I'm on the job.
I am not left-handed.
By the way, I'm happy to do any of these voices as we go along. I'm gonna be doing plenty. Then there was Don Rickles.
Oh boy.
Yes, the Italian people, and we need the Italian people to find out where the mail goes. Yes, of course. Bob Hope wanted to be here, but he's off looking for another war. Neil Armstrong, the guy that went up there and said, "Hey man, there's the moon." I kid you. You're an American hero. You've told me that time and time again.
Fly me.
And I just want to say, Zach, I enjoy doing the show with you. You would love the evening if you knew you were here. And then, of course, Dean Martin. And who ran the roasts before Comedy Central, before the Friars Club. Dean Martin used to do the roasts, and Don Rickles was the star of those. So, now, granted, these are all, by the way, great stars.
Yes.
We're not taking anything away from their talent.
Nope.
We're just saying, when you're younger, you're not really relating to those guys. I had to become an adult to appreciate these guys.
Yeah, that's
As
true.
a kid, I didn't give 2 shits about Don Rickles, let alone knew who the fuck he was. Surely didn't know who Buddy Hackett was. Dean Martin didn't care. Phyllis Diller didn't really care.
Nope.
As a kid, I didn't care.
Nope.
Today, I respect them for who they are.
Yes.
I even think Don Rickles is fucking hilarious. I wish he was still alive so you could put the snowflakes in their place.
True.
They wouldn't last 10 seconds with Don Rickles.
Not even 5.
I'm just saying, like, they have the mechanical bull, can you stay on the full 8 seconds? I think the snowflakes should have a different contest. Put them in a room with Don Rickles and see how long it takes them to cry, shit their pants, run to their safe space, pull out their coloring books and Play-Doh. start yelling, "You're a Nazi," even though he's Jewish. With the financial stakes sky high, NBC hopes to bury Arsenio by doing unto him how they did to Joan Rivers. So Arsenio gives a national audience a first look at undiscovered talent not previously welcome on network TV.
True.
So he finds people that are big stars,
yes,
talent that everybody knows, that the other hosts are like, we ain't gonna touch them. And speaking of not being able to touch them, who do they get?
MC Hammer.
Can't touch this. Oh, stop. Hammer time. That dude right there. And I used to love MC Hammer as a kid.
Yes.
That was the first rapper I ever listened to was MC Hammer. So he performed You Can't Touch This for the first time on Arsenio Stage 29, and it made him a cultural phenomenon. So here's how MC Hammer got the mainstream success. He appeared on Arsenio Hall. Because the other hosts wouldn't touch him. And it's a win-win. Arsenio can book hot new talent shunned by his competitors, and hip-hop gets national television exposure.
Yes.
So, and this is going to play into what other people say later, but Arsenio helps to put hip-hop on the map. Because before that time, it wasn't getting a whole lot of exposure, and it was very much underground. But Arsenio brings it to the main stage. They also have a slamming green room with hot catered food and a bar that not only the stars enjoyed, but also the publicists, the managers, the agents, their families, their dogs, everybody. They had a big part. The green room was where the party at. You didn't have to go to an after party. The green room was the pre-party, the after party, during the party sometimes. Hopefully that you controlled yourself before you went on. And it quickly becomes clear that if you're a young black artist, appearing on Arsenio can be a professional game changer.
Yes, it can.
They went from having Jimmy Dean's Sausage as a sponsor to Mercedes-Benz. Like now, Mercedes wants to get on the action.
Yes.
And Jimmy Dean, in my opinion, yeah, but they had the worst commercials.
Yeah, they were kind of racist.
No, they were just disgusting.
Yeah.
The eggs come from real chickens. The milk comes from real cows. The sausage is from Jimmy Dean. Yeah, I'm good.
No.
I'm good. Sorry, I don't want his sausage. 6 months into the show, Arsenio was on the cover of Time magazine. 6 months in.
Yeah. And
he went from a 12:30 a.m. time slot to an 11:30 p.m. time slot in New York. And 11:30, that's the sweet spot.
Yes, it is.
11 o'clock, 11:30. No, 11:30 was it, because 11 o'clock had the news. There was the 11 Alive news.
Yep.
And then you had 11:30 was talk show. The 11:30 time slot was the mecca of late night. Because you were the lead. That meant you were the lead dog.
Yes, you were.
Anything that came on after you was like your successor. But you were the lead dog on that show. You were. You were the top guy if you had the 11:30 time slot.
Very true.
They also receive a huge show of recognition when Farrah Fawcett appears on the show. She was a major important star in the 90s. She was on Charlie's Angels, the original Charlie's Angels. This is before Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, and Cameron Diaz. But they were the original Charlie's Angels. She was a megastar in movies. She even did one movie where she was a crazy mom who shot her kids because she was with a guy who didn't like kids, and she was just that movie. I can't remember the name of that movie, but I remember the song "Hungry Like a Wolf" was playing on the radio, and that was a focal point of the trial in the movie. And again, this is Farrah Fawcett's character, not Farrah Fawcett herself. Just clarifying that.
Yep.
This was the turning point that led to Arsenio being able to book A-list stars. While over at CBS, Pat Sajak can't even buy a vowel. He gets canceled by the end of his first season. Like, Pat Sajak just sucked. And here's the thing. He was good for Wheel of Fortune.
Yes, he is.
But Pat Sajak is one of those people, he can't really talk that well. You need him on a game show where you don't have to say much.
True.
Play to your strengths. not your weaknesses. CBS stations across the country are now able to make a deal with Paramount to air Arsenio and Sajak's time slot. Mm-hmm. So now he's getting syndication on CBS. Yes. So that, you know what that means?
What?
If Arsenio wasn't a threat before,
he is now.
He sure as shit is now.
Sure as shit is now.
He called the band his posse.
Yep.
And his audience, the Dog Pound. Mm. And he had a segment called Things That Make You Say, That became a song by CNC Music Factory that was a hit. Also, instead of saying, we got a great lineup for you tonight, he would say, let's get busy.
Let's get busy.
Which, again, he's changing things up a little bit. He's making himself seem cool. And that's what the young audience wants. Somebody who's cool. And at first, for show business, Arsenio doesn't just book black performers to put on a show. He brings them on to talk business.
Yes.
Like, give financial advice and talk other things. And former president of the Los Angeles chapter of the NAACP, Willis Edwards, and film director Spike Lee publicly take a swing at Arsenio as an Uncle Tom.
Boo.
In the media, he punches back, but the attacks sting and will soon redirect the career trajectory of the young late-night star. So basically they're saying that he's not black enough. That's what the Uncle Tom reference is. It's basically saying you cater to the white man, you the white man's lapdog. That's what Uncle Tom means. And it is one of the most offensive things you can say to a black person. It's not as bad as the N-word, but it's bad.
It's bad.
Like, that's the worst. You call somebody an Uncle Tom, it's like, motherfucker. Mm-hmm. Like, apparently, you know, and here's the thing that bothers me. They're saying he's not black enough. Have you seen the fucking people on his show?
All of them are predominantly black.
He's literally catering to a black audience.
All these young, upcoming rappers.
Like, look at all the people that are getting exposure from his show. I mean, this is the thing that bothers me about not all black people, but some black people, is that they for some reason, in order for you to be down with the movement, everybody around you has to be black. God forbid you have a white producer or a white guest or whatever, you're not black enough unless everyone around you gotta be black. Everyone around you gotta be black. To me, that's fucking stupid. If you're giving black people exposure, you're helping to uplift the black community. Now, as long as you're doing it in a positive way, which Arsenio was, to me, that makes him black enough. Also, here's another thing. He's black. Mm-hmm. His behavior doesn't change the fact. Being black is not an attitude. It's a skin color. Mm-hmm. It's a race. You are black no matter how you behave. As a fact. You still go through the same struggles that other black people go through. You're still looked at and perceived in positive and negative ways. Your attitude and your behavior does not define your skin color. You know, that's why, like, when people always, like we see white people trying to act all gangsta and rap, and they say, dude, you white. I know I am. You know, I might talk with a little bit of a young vernacular. I might say some things that sound a little street from time to time. I might have a little swagger when I walk. But I know for a fact that I'm white. I'm not trying to be anything except for me. Who I am. And also, in my lifetime, I've hung out with a lot of black people. Mm-hmm. So and I get along with a lot of black people.
I do.
So when you hang out with black people as much as I have, sometimes you adopt a little bit of mannerisms and things like that. Mm-hmm. But I'm very well aware of the fact that I'm white. I'm not ashamed of it. Nope. I don't have a problem with it. Nope. Nobody else seems to have a problem with it that hangs around me. And I'm of the belief of, if you're talented, you'll make it to the top.
Yes, you will.
If you put into work and you got the talent, you can make it.
Okay.
No matter how delusional you might think that makes me. Mm. Now, the early 90s saw many firsts for black Americans. Colin Powell is named chairman of the U.S. Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Yes.
We all know Colin Powell. He's mostly well known for his time during the W. Bush administration.
Yes.
We have Art Shell, who becomes the first black coach of an NFL team, which apparently even is still a controversial thing even today. And you got Frederick Drew Gregory, who was the first black person to command a space shuttle. Which is another big milestone. But in Hollywood, being first and being black has always been a tricky part to play. Because this is the thing that people don't understand about being the first black person to do something. When you're the first black person, that means for a period of time, you're not just the first one. You're the only one.
Yep.
Which means that you have to make the sacrifice of, as we mentioned before, playing ball, playing the game.
Yep.
That's the sacrifice that the first black person has to make. And at times it is tough. And at times it's annoying. And at times it's going to piss you off. It's going to frustrate you. And your first reaction is going to be, fuck all you crackers. But you can't do that.
No, you cannot.
That's the dilemma you're in. Because if you fuck up, if you get fired, you don't just fuck it up for yourself. You fuck it up for all black people. So you don't have the luxury of being able to say, fuck this, I quit. You don't have the luxury of telling somebody to fuck off. It's like that movie 42 with Jackie Robinson. Harrison Ford, who played the coach of the Cubs, can't remember his name, the actor's name, not the character's name, sorry. He talked about Jackie Robinson.
Yes.
He wanted to bring Jackie Robinson in. He wanted to integrate the Major League Baseball.
Yes.
But he's having a conversation with them. And he said, if I bring you on, how are you going to conduct yourself? Like, can you hit home runs? Yes, I can. Are you going to show up on time? Are you going to show up to practice? Are you going to play the game? Are you going to give me your best every time you're out there? But let's say you're in a situation where you're at a restaurant and a waiter won't take your order. Or let's say we're at a hotel and you can't stay in a certain area. Or let's say there's this and that and all this and whatever. Here's the question he's going to ask at that point. Are you going to snap, get yourself locked up, and ruin my plans to integrate the team? And Jackie Robinson said, are you telling me you don't want somebody that has the guts to fight back? He said, no. I want somebody who has the guts not to fight back. Because that's not how we win this game. The only way you're going to beat them, the only way you can stick it to the white man, as they call it, is to win. That's how Jackie Robinson was able to beat the system, by getting on base and scoring, hitting home runs, getting points on the board, winning games, being the best player he can be, winning people over. And by doing that, and I know this sounds horrible, but unfortunately this was life. Once you pass that test, you can move, like I said before, you can move to the top spot. And then you can change the system from within. But also, you can pave the way for other black people to come in. It's like, okay, this guy's professional and can play the game. Maybe there's other black people like him.
True.
Let's bring those people in.
Yes, that's
and they come in and they play the game and they deliver.
Hank Aaron.
Exactly. Like, that's how you gotta play the game. That's the tricky part about being the first black anything. You have to play the game to get your foot in the door, to get the promotions, to get the opportunity, to be in a position of power. And then once you're in that position of power, then you can change the game.
Yeah.
So that's the tricky part. So while everyone else is out here saying you don't belong here and calling you the N-word, you got black people over here calling you an Uncle Tom and a coon and a bunch of other horrible names.
Yeah, that's true.
You're dealing with all that while trying to change the game and give black people more opportunities that without you, they wouldn't be getting.
Very true.
And that's what Arsenio Hall is doing.
Yes, it is.
But because it's not happening as fast as they want it to happen, that's why they got a problem. It's like, oh, Arsenio Hall's already there. We should have the opportunities now. He's 6 months into his job.
Pretty much.
Let him get the show up. Let him get the level at a certain point, and then bring the things in. People don't understand that shit takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And despite claiming to want his show to be inclusive, Arsenio was attacked for not doing enough, as we mentioned before.
He did plenty. I don't want to. He did plenty.
Perhaps in response to those complaints, Arsenio sets up an internship program for young people of color. And one of his first interns is a headstrong USC film student named John Singleton. He was asked to Xerox something. He said, "No, that's not what I do." Okay. Now, it's on Arsenio Stage 29 that Singleton meets Ice Cube, who he will one day cast as the up-and-coming rapper in his groundbreaking debut film, Boys in the Hood. But Arsenio has ambitions that exceed facilitating careers in Hollywood. He wants to make a difference in the greater black communities of LA, which in the late 80s and 90s were confronting a deadly gang war between the Crips and the Bloods.
Yes.
Okay, before I get to that, I want to address this right now.
Here we go.
Okay. Now, obviously, John Singleton went on to do Boys in the Hood and had a pretty good career for himself. Congratulations. Props to you. But this right here is a prime example of how one bad apple can possibly spoil the bunch. Because you're complaining that he's not giving black people enough opportunities. That black people are being left in the dust. You don't have any black people working on your staff. Yeah, you got all these hip-hop people, you're putting people on TV. What about behind the scenes? You giving jobs to black people? Or are you just a puppet on the string for all the white producers? So he brings in a young intern who doesn't want to work. Do you have any idea how fucking embarrassing that is? For someone to say you need to hire more black people, then as soon as he hires somebody who's black, he becomes difficult to work with? If you don't see how fucking stupid that is, you are a libtard with your head in the sand. You need to pull it the fuck out.
Yep.
That is goddamn ridiculous. You're an intern. That is what you do. Take it from somebody who's been an intern. That is literally the job of an intern. Yes, you are there to do certain jobs. You're there to learn. Part of an internship is teaching. Part of the internship is getting work experience on certain things. But guess what? You also do the menial work on top of that. So you might be doing some production stuff. You might be getting supervised or shadowing people to learn. But there are other times where you're going to be making files and copies, getting people's lunch orders, picking up people's dry cleaning. That's what interns do, regardless of your skin color. That's an intern. You know why? Because you're learning the ropes and paying your dues. Yeah, intern work is not fucking fun. But it gets you a foot in the door. And if you do a good job, you now have a reference that you can give on your application to say, hey, I worked on the Arsenio Hall show. Here's the producer's number. You can call him. Hello, Mr. Producer of Arsenio Hall. My name is Bradley, and I'm over here at ABC, and I understand this showman wants a job producing. I was wondering, what do you have to say about Mr. John Singleton? Well, Brad, let me tell you, John Singleton was a hell of a great worker. Yes, he was. That kid was hardworking, determined, and willing to learn. He has got great experience over here. We taught him very well, and I promise you, Brad, he will be a good addition to you over at ABC. Why, thank you, producer at Arsenio Hall. I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. Gee, I ought to hire that John Singleton. Let's get that John Singleton kid on the phone. So you know what I mean?
Yes.
That's how it works. But now they're going to go, hello, producer over at Arsenio Hall. This is Brad over here at ABC, and I was wondering about, we got a resume here from a kid that used to work for you. His name is John Singleton. What can you tell me about John Singleton? Well, apparently, he has a certain catchphrase that he used around here a lot. Really? What is that? That's not what I do. Apparently, he doesn't do anything that he feels is beneath him because he's an entitled little brat. He was a horrible person, and if that's the kind of man you want to hire, that's up to you. But let me tell you, you're getting a diva. Click.
Click.
Well, in that case, we might want to stay away from that. I don't need somebody being troublesome on my staff. Please take that resume and put it in the shredder. We won't be needing. That's the attitude you get when you want to act like a fucking child. And like I said, the other day, he went on to do great success. Good for him. But at the time, that's a fucking problem. Because let me tell you something. You think next time Arsenio goes, we should hire a black intern? You think they would have been eager to say yes?
No.
So I'm gonna tell you right now, if it were me, after hearing that, I wouldn't hire anybody else. I'd have to meet them. I have to talk to them personally and know for a fact that if I give them a task, they're gonna do it. I'll teach them what they need to know. They're gonna learn. I'm not just gonna make them my errand boy. I'm not gonna do that. But at the very least, if I need something done, do it. Mm-hmm. Interns do menial work while also learning the job.
True. That's
what an internship is. Mm-hmm. Now, there are some people who do meaningless tasks and never learn anything. Those are crappy internships. There are some people who learn the ropes and don't do any of the menial work. I call them lucky bastards.
Very lucky bastards.
Now, of course, Arsenio Hall obviously wants to talk about the gang wars going on because, again, like I said, there comes a time when something happens in America that needs to be addressed. Certain news articles, certain events you can kind of move away from, but some require attention, and this definitely required attention. Mm-hmm. Arsenio brings on the West Coast All-Stars, a collective of California rappers who are united in an effort to end gang violence in the City of Angels. Mm-hmm. It featured Mike Concepcion, who was a former gang member who conceived the idea of a weekend of peace, and Arsenio was a huge supporter of this entire effort. He showed a side of these artists you wouldn't see anywhere else, including rapper Tone Loc, who had a hit with the song Funky Cold Medina. And it go a little something like this. Hit it, Funky Cold Medina. For Arsenio, it's not just about leveraging black culture to grow his audience. He understands the unique messages being communicated by black music groups the other shows refuse to book. One in particular was NWA. No, I'm not talking about the wrestling company. Who are brought to speak about the lyrics in their songs. They spoke eloquently and logically, and even said that not all cops are bad. Mm-hmm. Just 90% of them. Which is funny, and I guess in LA it can be true. So, and I like that. He's like, look. We're not saying all cops are bad. We're just saying there's a lot of bad ones, and we've experienced bad ones in our lives. So it's what we talk about. And again, I respect that. It's like when comedians talk about certain things. A lot of times, it's because they've experienced stuff. It's like I'll give you an example. Sam Kinison used to talk a lot about, women in his act and going off on women. And he said women always gave him shit. And he was like, how come you never say anything about men? You never make fun of men in your act. You always say bad things about women. Why you never say anything about men? He goes, there's a reason! Because he used to yell a lot. He goes, there's a good fucking reason! You know why? It's because a man never broke my fucking heart. A man never made me want to kill myself after a horrible breakup because she was a cold-blooded fucking bitch. You're fucking whore. That's why he went off. That's why he said, he goes, a man never broke my heart. A man never put me through hell. It's like, and it's like Destiny's Child. Almost every other song they did, or even Beyonce in general, she's shitting on men for some reason. Mm-hmm. It's because she's not a lesbian, so she's never had a woman break her heart. Although you would think after 4 or 5 albums she would go, maybe it's me. She never did that. That's just my personal opinion. But I'm just saying, artists are going to talk about things that affected them. Nope. Shit they went through. True. And sometimes it might be annoying to hear, painful to hear if you fall into that category of that group of people. True. But sometimes you got to remind yourself you're not in that group. Sometimes you got to remind yourself of that. And I'm guilty of it too. Yeah. I hear certain things and I'm kind of like, yo, fuck you, I don't do that. But then I got to remind myself, wait. He's talking about people that are like that. I'm not like that, so I ain't got to worry about it. Sometimes I even got to check myself. In the fall of 1990, NWA is fighting the FBI over what they can and cannot say in their music. Arsenio hires actors to play officers trying to shut down the performance. So it's a parody goof they're doing.
It's just a joke, that's it.
But they have been arrested for their lyrics.
Yes, they have.
Like especially when they say things like "fuck the police" coming straight from the underground, because they thought they said you're encouraging people to attack the police.
Not really.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's what they're doing. I'm saying that's how it was perceived.
See it that way.
I don't either. I'm saying they're angry with the police. They got a right to be. Arsenio's commitment and authenticity gets noticed by the black community in Hollywood. Suddenly he's booking guests that no one else can get. Like Prince.
Oh, yeah, he was a huge Prince fan.
Prince agreed to do the show, but he only wanted to sing and not talk. So Arsenio decided to just let Prince sing, and then brought on guests who worked with Prince and have them tell some stories. Which is kind of good.
Yeah, I can see that. Good stories. Nothing bad about Prince.
Good beloved, we are guided for this thing we call YouTube.
I called YouTube, and Eddie Boochie hasn't blown a gasket yet and turned to Hades from Hercules.
Yes! Hades rules! Arsenio was smart enough to weather efforts by his competitors to keep big-name celebrities off his show and become the exclusive destination for A-listers with something difficult to talk about. So now it got to the point where A-listers didn't care anymore.
Yeah.
Because they were like, look, I want to reach out to the younger audience. And here's the thing I look at it. I'm like, I'm an A-lister. The fuck do I need Carson for? At a certain point, you're just like, look, I'm a movie star. You should want me on your show. You want to be a petty motherfucker? Be my guest.
Yes.
I'm still going to make millions of dollars doing this show. So, like, I'm cool. So they went to Arsenio because they knew they'd be in front of the younger audience, the hipper audience. Arsenio's going to ask fun questions. I mean, he'll hit you with the hard stuff from time to time, but you're going to have fun. And it's great. Now, one in particular was his best friend, Magic Johnson, who he invited on the show after he announced his retirement from the NBA after contracting HIV. Magic on the Appearance on Arsenio was a 90s cultural milestone and helped set the stage for possibly the most iconic moment in late-night TV history. Now, before we get to that, Magic Johnson was a big deal because right about now, the HIV thing was something that was scary, but here's the thing. This was the first time you were hearing on national TV, and again, this is the 90s, so understand the time period before you go crazy or what I'm about to say. This is the first time we heard about someone contracting HIV that wasn't gay. Because usually it was very rampant in the gay community. Now, it wasn't just gay people getting HIV, and gay people are obviously not the only ones who can get HIV. But it was more prominent in the gay community than in the straight community. And the reason is because gay people are more promiscuous. This is the way it is. It's nothing bad. I'm not saying anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that's the case. In fact, there were even controversies that Magic Johnson might be gay. And Arsenio said that he would get criticism about being called, people said, oh, Magic Johnson's gay, you must be Magic's lover. Because they were such close friends. And he's like, do you know anybody else that's heterosexual that got it? That was the big story. And then people thought like, I heard Magic Johnson's gay. And it's like, well, dude, you've been his friend for years. You know he's not gay. He goes, yeah, but you don't know. In LA, people do crazy stuff. So even some of his closest friends started thinking Magic Johnson was gay. Even though he was fucking more women than the Rolling Stones. For Christ's sake. And that's how he got HIV. Because Magic Johnson was fucking bitches left and right. Women threw themselves at him because he was one of the biggest stars in the NBA. And he was single. Michael Jordan was a big star, but he was married. So now I'm not saying he never cheated on his wife. I don't know. I have no evidence of that. If he did, he hit it very well. That's all I'm going to say. Here's another iconic moment. Bill Clinton appeared on the Arsenio Hall show, put on shades, and played the saxophone to a roaring surprise. So Bill Clinton's on there playing the saxophone. That was a big deal. Because you didn't see presidential candidates or presidential people doing a lot of crazy shit. I mean, fun shit. You always saw them as, I am the president of the United States. Or my fellow Americans. I have a very large stick up my ass. And it stays there for...
a stuck up asshole.
Yes, I have to be because I want people to take me seriously as the president.
I will.
Yeah.
Next time I will, though.
That was good, yeah. Says Bill Clinton spoke directly to the black culture in a way the other two candidates didn't. And that's why he was able to get their vote. Because they had him asking questions, he answered them. And that's the thing about Bill. He was able to laugh at himself. and answer questions. He didn't get mad. He didn't get standoffish. Apparently, that's what George Bush Sr. did. He was very standoffish and, not wanting. And it's a prime example of somebody who's old and not getting with the times. Nope. That was Bush Sr.'s problem. And that was John McCain's problem when he ran against Obama. John McCain was trying to do things old school, and the old school method had died.
Yes. Like
Obama was embracing social media. Which is why I laughed when people got mad at Trump for embracing social media. I'm like, I'm sorry. Didn't the last president set that precedent? Oh, no. Oh, but he was the first black president, so we're going to let that go. Glad I know. Good to know. All right. And he was jokingly referred to as the first black president. That's why before Obama got elected, people used to always say, well, we don't have a black president. Well, we got Clinton, that's close.
I do the gimmick.
Sure.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Go ahead.
Although I'm wearing her panties at this current point in time.
I was like, why did he cheat on his wife? His wife is Hillary. Oh.
I still think Chelsea's a test tube baby.
Okay.
I don't think he ever fucked her. I believe Bill's her father. But I think there was a sperm and an egg and and they had it artificially inseminated, created in a lab. I don't think he ever stuck his dick in her pussy. I don't. As gross as this may sound, I would need to see a sex tape just to prove they've ever fucked.
Okay.
And I wouldn't watch it completely, just enough to be able to prove, okay, the dick went into the pussy and I can clearly see both their faces. That's enough. That's all I need to see. We're good. Let me see a couple minutes so I know it ain't photoshopped or CGI or nothing like that. Yeah. Okay, it's good. Okay. I got my proof.
Okay, there you go.
Till then, I don't believe they've ever fucked.
You had sex with Satan. Sorry.
Politics, film, music. Arsenio was the kingmaker with the golden touch, perhaps due to one famously long finger. His index finger was long and E.T.-like, and he would touch fingertips with Michael Wolff from the band. He and Ivory Wayans did a parody of it on In Living Color. Sometimes guests would even want to do it. Arsenio. Hey, you know what that is? That's the original Too Sweet. So Arsenio invented the Too Sweet. Some say imitation is a serious form of flattery, but Johnny Carson might disagree. After seeing a Saturday Night Live Johnny Arsenio mashup and an SNL skit called Carsenio. The sketch suggests that Carson is a has-been, and Johnny finds it insulting, especially since SNL airs on NBC, which is the same network he is on. It also reveals an uncomfortable reality. 4 days after the sketch, Carson announces he's the one finished with The Tonight Show. The news will spark one of the most contentious battles in the history of broadcast television. Now, before we get to that debacle, I do admit, I think it's really, really odd that Johnny Carson's on NBC and they insulted Johnny Carson in an SNL sketch. Don't you think at any point you should have talked to Johnny? That's all I'm saying. Have a conversation. Now, I can understand if Johnny worked for a competing network. Shit all over him. If I'm on NBC, if I have a show on NBC, and SNL is going to do a parody of me, wouldn't you feel, I would feel like, hey, at least come talk to me about it. Let me know what you're going to do. Because if you bury my show, it hurts the network.
It hurts the network.
Because we're on the same network.
We're on the very same.
Like if I was on SNL right now, and I was going to do a parody of Jimmy Fallon, at the very least, I'm having a sit down with Jimmy Fallon and going, hey, here's the sketch I want to do. Here's the ball-busting jokes I want to do. Are you cool with this? And if he says yes, I'm going to run it. If he says no, I'm going to squash it. Why? Because again, they're on the same network. Look, again, I'm all for ball-busting and roasting. But you might want to clear it with people in your network. I don't know if I should blame the cast or Lorne Michaels. None of y'all thought to talk to Johnny about this.
Apparently not.
Kind of stupid.
Very stupid.
I'll be honest, it was stupid. Again, if Johnny Carson was on CBS or ABC or Fox or whatever, I'd say fucking let him have it. But when you're on the same network, you might want to clear it. Now, in the spring of 1991, the Arsenio Hall show was on the rise. When the news of Carson's retirement shifts the tension, then sparks controversy who will take over the Tonight Show. This sparks the Late Night Wars. Mm-hmm. Or as I like to call it, Late Night War 1. Because we'd have another one in the 2000s. The battle centers on who will replace Johnny on the Tonight Show. Host of his own talk show on NBC, David Letterman, or Johnny's regular stand-in host, Jay Leno. Now, the Arsenio team just focused on doing their own show because fans don't really care what's happening over there. It's like, you know what? Again, this is a major moment for our audience to care about these guys because they're old news. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to do our thing and not even talk about it. But what's happening is an increasingly contentious battle for the Tonight Show. Throughout the 1980s, Letterman's late night show directly followed Carson on NBC. And it was assumed that when Johnny stepped down, Letterman would get that spot. But instead, Johnny gave it Jay. Now, before I get into what happens after this, people need to understand how crucial of a moment this is. Not just because of Letterman and Leno and the feud and all that. But as I mentioned earlier in the show, Johnny Carson was the make or break for comedians. Doing the Tonight Show, getting that wave over to the chair was your rite of passage. Here's the sad part. When Carson retired, that rite of passage went with him. Mm-hmm. Because doing a set on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno didn't guarantee you a goddamn thing.
No, it did not.
And I'm going to tell you why. And I can say this because he's not on the show anymore. Jay Leno did not give a single fuck about elevating comedians. Here's the difference between Carson and Leno. When Carson had a guest on his show, do you know what he did the most when he had guests on a show?
What?
He listened. He said, my greatest talent as a talk show host is my ability to listen. That is a piece of advice that I have used for interviews that I have done over the years. Now, I've made the mistake a few times on Rock 100, but I learned. But whether it was Rock 100.5 or the Boochcast, whenever I did an interview with somebody, I did more listening than I did talking. If I did all the talking, it's because my guest was lazy. And I would never book them again. But when I have people on the show, well, you're a co-host. You're still lazy, but you're a co-host. That don't count.
Fuck you.
So anyway, prove me wrong. So anyway, that was his talent. He asked the questions, he would set it up, and the guest would shine.
Shine.
That's why you set it up for the guests to be funny. And then you shine right along with them. And that's what I've done with every interview. That's why the worst interviewers are the people who interrupt or try to top the other person. And Jay Leno did that a lot. Almost all the fucking time. Jay Leno had to be the center of attention every time. The guest very seldom had anything to say. In fact, there's only one guest that I can think about that Jay Leno was never able to talk over or top.
Who's that?
Robin Williams.
Yeah,
because with Robin Williams, good fucking luck. Robin Williams steals the show all the time. And to this day, I don't know if that's just how he was or if he was an egomaniac or whatever. Robin Williams is so manic as a comic. And his brain operated on a different wavelength. You could not outperform or overshadow him. May 25th, 1992 marks the beginning of Jay Leno's run as host of The Tonight Show. Yes. Like much of Hollywood, Arsenio is unhappy with the decision. He doesn't think Leno has earned his job. No one did. And speaks out publicly. He says on the cover of a magazine he was going to whoop his ass. Like, oh, I'm going to take him on. despite the fact that they were friends who came up together in the comedy scene. He felt that Leno was poaching on his territory. So basically, Arsenio is kind of doing to Jay what Carson did to Rivers. Instead of being happy for his friend, he's like, oh, so now you want to take my crown. I'm on top of the food chain. You want to climb up the chain. I'm going to knock your ass back down. You in that giant fucking chin.
That's a big...
Well, that's the big joke. Everybody make fun. Man whose chin can sink the Titanic.
Pretty much.
While Arsenio focuses on battling Leno, David Letterman makes a move that will prove to be a devastating blow to Arsenio's future in late night. Letterman gets a talk show on CBS, which means more money for Letterman and less TV stations for Arsenio. So now he lost that affiliation. It's like, well, we don't need Arsenio on here anymore. We got David Letterman. Because his goal was, I'm going to stick it to Jay. You took me out of my spot. I'm gonna stick it to you now, motherfucker. And as we all know, Conan O'Brien took over Letterman's spot before he got the upgrades to the Tonight Show, and Leno fucked him over. And then Jimmy Fallon, who took Conan O'Brien's spot, later to the Tonight Show, because Jay kept it for a few more years, then finally decided to retire. Fucking asshole. And it was just a nightmare. Not wanting to be left behind, Fox decides to produce its own late-night program, The Chevy Chase Show. To make room for Chevy, Arsenio's syndicated show is pushed to late night. And I think this is where you might have something to say?
I don't like Chevy Chase that much. I heard he's an asshole. I heard he's a bit on the racist side, but that's just...
Yeah. Well, I know on SNL he wasn't likable.
Yeah, I heard he was not likable at all.
Even the current caster thought he was a dick. Like, nobody liked Chevy Chase.
So dumb.
He got into a fight with Bill Murray. You know how much of an asshole you gotta be?
You get into a fight with
for Bill Murray to want to fight you? Yeah. And of course, so now Chevy Chase gets this spot, and Arsenio is now behind Chase. So now Chevy is the lead dog.
Yeah.
And Arsenio ain't happy.
No, he's not.
They now ended up fighting for talent, and because of the success of Arsenio, the other stars started booking hip-hop artists. Because again, once you have a winning formula, people want to copy it.
Yes.
Like, oh crap, they actually like these hip-hop artists. Well, we got to get them on our show.
Yes, we do.
And again, they want the exposure. They know how big of a deal it is to be on Letterman and Leno. Despite the fact that Leno is kind of a prick to comics. But other celebrities, you can get exposure from that.
Yes, you can.
So, it was good. So they're all getting on there, they're all celebrating, and with ratings in freefall, the grind of a nightly show begins to wear Arsenio down. After having the same guests on over and over, he was running out of things to talk about.
Pretty much.
Which can happen.
Yes, it can.
Because there's only so many stories that celebrities have in their arsenal. That's why when you see celebrities on a show regularly or a lot of the time, they get to a point where instead of telling funny stories from the past or funny whatever, most of the time they're talking about, my family life. Well, my daughter just turned 3 and she had a birthday party and I don't give a shit. Perhaps an eye to revitalize the struggling show, Arsenio decides to have on one of the most controversial figures of the 1990s, Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Oh, Jesus Christ. He was doing this for publicity stunt, really.
In early 1994, with his ratings down 24% amidst a crowded late-night landscape, Arsenio writes a letter to Paramount informing that this will be his last season. So he's done. He's burned out. He's done. It's assumed that the sinking rains are why Arsenio ends the show. But that's only part of the story, and it takes 18 years for Arsenio to finally reveal his true motivation, which is... he realized he couldn't please anybody. Between Spike Lee calling him an Uncle Tom and white people saying he's too black, he decided the fight wasn't worth it anymore and chose to end the show on his terms, which was by booking Louis Farrakhan on the show. Because he knew after this, nobody was going to like him. And at this point, this was it. This is basically a, you know what? I have tried. I have given exposure to people. I have tried to change the landscape of late night. I have tried to give you guys a show, and all you do is bitch and complain and whine and bitch. You're ungrateful, so you know what? Here's my big thank you, fuck you, goodbye.
Goodbye.
by putting on somebody I know you're not going to like.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm going to have a farewell show, and then I am riding off into the goddamn sunset. Because fuck all you ungrateful ass motherfuckers.
Very true.
He was controversial, not only because of his speeches that were misogynistic, anti-Semitic, and sexist, but also because his aide, Khalid Abdul Muhammad, and again, this is him saying this, it's a quote, he called Jewish people the bloodsuckers of the black nation.
I saw that. I was like, really? You guys go blame somebody else, like yourselves, not the Jewish people.
What? Really?
Leave them alone. Been through enough already.
I mean, they get blamed for so much shit.
I'm not like, seriously?
I don't get the hatred.
I don't get it either.
He also had issues with like interracial dating and shit, which as someone who's been in interracial relationships, I say fuck you. It's like, you know what? It's like, just mind your own goddamn business.
True. That's
what I'm saying. And it doesn't matter if it's a white guy dating a black girl or a black man dating a white woman. Everybody lose their fucking minds.
Very true.
Why? Here's my question.
And why is it your business in the first place?
Like, here's my question to all the people that are bitching about the interracial relationship. Were any of you planning on fucking either one of these people?
No.
Then shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
I've always said, if you're white and it bothers you that I date a black girl, right now I'm currently single, but I've dated black women in the past. If you see me with a black girl and it bothers you, here's my message to all you white bitches. And yes, I'm saying white bitches. You only have yourselves to blame.
True.
Because I don't play hard to get. I am single. I don't care what color your skin is. As long as you are over the age of 18, if you want to have sex with me, DM me. Slide into my DMs. And I will slide you the D. That's simple. It is that simple. My only requirement is you have to be 18 and have a heartbeat. And the only reason you have to be 18 and have a heartbeat is because it's illegal if you weigh both those things. Obviously, that's a joke. You should be laughing at that. If you're not, you're an idiot. Clearly, I'm fucking joking on that last part.
Yes.
I'm a comedian.
Bring your heat.
That's in wrestling. I'm talking about comedy. It's a joke.
Well, that just said.
Yeah, okay. But you ready? I have to get my heat. I'm on a podcast, dumbass. So, Arsenio has always brought people on to talk about issues and hear their thoughts. The only difference is the person he was bringing on happens to be one of the most hated men in America. So, again, this is an issue where people love to hear about different thoughts and opinions and expressions, unless you happen to say something that pisses them off.
Very true.
Then they don't want to hear from you.
No, they do not.
Now, here's where I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Uh-oh.
Me personally, I would love to hear a person's different point of view if you're going to interview somebody. And here's why. By the way, I'm not going to pull my pants down. It's just this belt was digging into my ribs. Fucking hurts like hell. So anyway, price I pay for being fat. Now, the point I'm trying to make is, I want to hear other people's point of view. Especially, now there's a reason why this didn't work out. Because it's going to be the opposite of what I'm about to say right now. As long as you can have a healthy debate and ask the right questions,
Always ask the right question.
It allows you to understand where they're coming from. The best example of this is Daryl Davis, he's a black musician but also an activist who is known for helping racist Klan members quit the Ku Klux Klan. The reason he able to get them to quit is because he would talk to them and not fight them, but learn from them. Why do they think the way they do? Just sitting down and talking. Not agreeing with them, just trying to understand. And through those understandings, he would form friendships with Klan members. Those Klan members, through that friendship with Daryl, and because Daryl was willing to listen and respect their opinions, they showed him the same respect when he would talk to them. And in doing so, they would eventually see the error of their ways and leave the Klan.
Very true.
Over 200 people and counting had left the Klan because of Daryl Davis. So sitting down with somebody who has an insane point of view and trying to understand why they think the way they do is a method to helping to stop the madness. Because Daryl Davis's best quote is this: when two enemies are talking, they're not fighting. Mm-hmm. They're talking. Even if it's a heated argument, they're talking. It's when the talking ceases that the ground becomes fertile for violence. Mm-hmm. So as long as you keep the conversation going in a healthy way, you can bring an end to everything. Yes, you can. So, now, there were some black people who did like him. Mm-hmm. Mostly because he did do some good for the black community. Mm-hmm. He did.
He did.
They offered education, mm-hmm. food programs, and tried to uplift black communities. Right. Because as militant as they are, mm-hmm. and even though they have insane beliefs, they did care about the black community.
Yes, they did.
They just had an extreme way of showing it that can turn people off. But for Arsenio's producers, having Farrakhan on the show was a professional do-or-die decision. One of his producers quit the show, called a buddy at NBC, and got a job working on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno.
True.
Basically, he saw the sinking ship and jumped the fuck off.
Jumped off and got on the first lifeboat.
Yep. And he was row the boat. Yep. Oh, oh. Arsenio gives Farrakhan the entire TV hour and neglects to challenge the Nation of Islam leader on any of his more controversial statements. He was criticized for not asking the hard questions, which he was known for doing with multiple guests. Mm-hmm. And that was the problem. Mm-hmm. The problem wasn't that he had Farrakhan on the show. It's the fact that he basically didn't give a fuck anymore. And he let him just spout off at the mouth and didn't challenge him. Didn't give him a hard question to ask. Didn't keep any dialogue. Like, the only thing he said was that, you go off on white people, but you really go after black people a lot. And he said, I do that because I care and because I want to help. Someone who is tough on you loves you. Who's going to be tougher on you than somebody who loves you? And that's a way of kind of being like, okay, it's kind of weird, but I can see that. But here's where the hypocrisy in all this comes in. Arsenio Hall many years ago, in the heyday, he had a certain guest on his show. His name was Vanilla Ice. When Vanilla Ice appeared on Arsenio's show, he lit into his ass the second he walked out. He treated Vanilla Ice with such disrespect throughout the interview that the audience started to boo him. Vanilla even pointed out, your audience is booing you right now. He goes, I ain't worried about that. I asked the honest questions. And he was basically trying to say that Vanilla Ice, his first question to him, the crowd is applauding, everybody loving Vanilla Ice. You know what his first question was to him? He looked this man dead in the eye and goes, do you think you deserve this? That's his first question. Do you think you deserve the success that you have? In a way, he's trying to say you're a white man coming into hip-hop stealing black music. That's what he didn't say that outright, but you could tell that's what he was trying to say. He came in like him and Flavor in town. So he's like, did you bring in Flavor to try to show everybody that you down? And he's like, no, we were here because we're friends. He said, I heard you did a tour with MC Hammer. He goes, yeah. He goes, I heard, and apparently Hammer was upset because he's trying to say that you were saying some disparaging things about MC Hammer. He's like, I didn't say anything disparaging about MC Hammer. Hammer and I are friends. We're good. He's like, yeah, well, you said here that you guys did a tour together. And there were some nights where the crowd loved Hammer more than you. And there were some nights you said the crowd thought they preferred you over MC Hammer. And Vanilla Ice said, well, yeah, how was that insulting? He said, that's true. Some nights the crowd was more into me than him. Some nights the crowd was more into him than me. I'm not saying he's a bad artist. No. I'm just saying that was the audience reaction we were getting. MC Hammer's great. Yep. And that was when Arsenio kind of backed off on him a little bit. He's like, yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. And he goes, no, I'm fine, I don't care. But he's like, he hated Vanilla Ice. The hatred he had for Vanilla Ice was strong. very, very strong. It was very strong.
Very strong.
And I was insane. In fact, I remember when he got protested against by like this gay activist group because they felt that Arsenio Hall was homophobic.
I think he was.
He wasn't. But they said, he's like, how come you don't have any gay guests on your show?
90s, there's not a lot of gay actors out there.
No, here's what his answer was. He said, there's a lot of gay people who've been on this show, but it's none of your business that they're gay. Because Arsenio wasn't in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. He knew in Hollywood who was in the closet. Mm-hmm. But he's not going to out them on TV because he ain't that kind of guy. Mm-hmm. He said, and he's talking about certain names. He goes, okay, who's gay that I haven't had on my show? Mm-hmm. And he's like, he goes, I don't know who that guy is, but I know Elton John. He's been here. He's rocked the house. Mm-hmm. Then they said somebody else. And he goes, when that guy has something I'm interested in, I'll bring him on the show. But this is my show. You want to book it? Get yourself a show. Mm-hmm. He goes, you come over here thinking I'm going to discriminate against somebody because they're gay? I'm black. I'm the biggest minority you know about. Why would I discriminate? Mm. And he goes, how come you over here asking me if I don't have gay guests? No, I don't see you going to Johnny Carson or David Letterman asking them if they got gay people. Mm-hmm. You don't do that, do you?
No, they do not.
And and then they say like, he goes, I don't make fun of gay people. I do gay characters. Mm-hmm. It's like I can't do a joke. You can do a joke about anybody else, but you say because you're gay, I can't make gay jokes. Fuck you. Mm. It's a show. Loosen up your ass and enjoy it.
Very true, sir.
He went off on that guy. Mm. And I've seen those crazy moments on Arsenio Hall. So the fact that he didn't challenge Farrakhan was insane. But I think the reason was because, again, he had enough. Mm-hmm. I think his heart wasn't in it anymore. No, so he was just gonna I'm gonna sabotage this show and walk the fuck out.
Yes.
That's what I think he was trying to do. On April 18th, 2 months after the Farrakhan episode airs, Arsenio Hall publicly announces he's not going to continue the show. What follows is one of the most star-studded send-offs in late-night history. Mm-hmm. The climax is during Arsenio's last week on air with a segment produced by the matriarch of hip-hop, Queen Latifah, as they're doing songs and farewells.
Yeah.
Now, on April 27th, 1994, Arsenio does his last fist pump as host of the Arsenio Hall show. It was great for him, but disappoints the black community because it went back to having late-night hosts that were white, like Jimmy Kimmel, James Corden, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert, and Seth Meyers. The attempts to establish black hosts on late night have just not panned out for whatever reason. And I don't know what that reason is, but I will say this. To all the black people who bitched at Arsenio Hall over the years, I think you're partially to blame for why it all went back to white people. Because you had a good man, and you treat him like shit.
True.
And you never know what you got till it's gone. Mm-hmm. Now all you got is just this song. And in 2022, audiences get a brief look at what they've been missing. Arsenio reboots the show.
Yes.
Now, I haven't seen the reboot, have you?
No, I have not.
I
never even knew he was doing it in the first place.
Was it just an announcement, or is he coming back, or is it just something he's coming back with later?
I think he might be coming back with later in the new year, 2023.
I did see a brief moment where he kind of came back. I did see he had one episode with Stone Cold Steve Austin and another one with Chris Tucker.
Yeah.
I don't remember what talk show it was on, but it was short-lived.
Yeah.
But if he's bringing back the talk show, I'd love to see it.
Yes.
Because I think Arsenio, as they say, still has more funk in the trunk.
Yes, he does.
I think he's got more gas in the tank. I think he can really pull something off. And I'd love to see it.
Yep.
Because here's the thing. He talked about real issues, and technically he was all-inclusive, which I like. Now, of course, we'll get into more of that on later shows. But I just want to say, Arsenio had a great show.
Yes, he did.
And if he is rebooting it, I hope it's still on.
Yes.
And if it is, I'm definitely going to watch it.
Yes.
Of course, depends on who the guests are. And that, ladies and gentlemen, wrap up this episode of Boochcast Reviews, Darkside of the 90s. Zach, thanks so much for joining me. Make sure you guys tune in next week. We're going to have a hell of a great show for you guys. It's going to be a good one. We got MTV and the real world. This one's going to be a doozy. So make sure you follow us on all of our podcast platforms. Links are down in the description box below. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms. Link is down in the description box below. Support the Boochcast. Go to anchor.fm/the Boochcast/support. Link is down in the description box below. And of course, be sure to hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to be notified so you never miss another episode of Boochcast Reviews Darkside of the 90s, as well as other additional Boochcast YouTube content. We'll talk to you guys soon. Until then, pizza, baby!